Well, I have one last question, and it's also about social media as well, and really just kind of about the internet in general, but I think social media in particular is, it occurred to me, and this has actually occurred to me for quite a while, but it reoccurs to me every so often, especially when I'm reading about this stuff, and it reoccurred to me when I was reading your book. Um, does it ever really strike you sometimes, or do you ever wonder that, what if mankind was like not meant to communicate this way? Like, what if this like barrage of like information, oftentimes contextless information, or at least information that's like totally shorn from any from the real world. You're just getting it through like a screen or something, or this like weird mediated interaction with others. Um, I think a lot of the kind of ills of the internet, or that have been born from the internet, are often ascribed to this being sort of like growing pains, or like something similar to like how things were with the beginning of the printing press. But it strikes me as like, what if the whole idea of us like communicating, in these via these digital means, is just like not something that the human brain and the human soul really is meant to be doing.
That's a fair question, Brace. And I don't mean to sound too optimistic about our ability to make a better internet. Maybe the internet shouldn't exist in the first place. I'm actually totally open to that possibility. I think what's hard is that, as soon as the internet emerges, people
Hmm.
start using it to communicate. It's actually not what it was created for, but it's what people end up using it for. Email becomes, wildly popular on the early internet because people love to communicate. They love to socialize. And this, I think, does, without sounding like one of those guys, I think that does speak to something in our human nature. I don't love the term, but I think to the extent that we have any human nature, we are a social species. We do need to be around one another. We need to form communities with one another. And we live in a very isolated and isolating society. People are like really quite alienated and lonely. It's not a new observation. So I think that there is something tragic here, which is that these technologies speak to and to some degree exploit our need to connect with one another and the lack of outlets for doing so in real life. I mean, our kind of social fabric has really hollowed out.
Hmm.
People don't have unions. They don't have like civil organizations. They don't have like neighborhood organizations where they can connect in, some of them do. But, there has been this like real loss of people's like kind of rich civic life that I think social media in particular takes advantage of. It takes advantage of people's desire to connect and provides this substitute, which in many cases can be frankly toxic, can make people feel worse. Can make people feel more isolated. In terms of what is to be done, I think that's why I'm curious about the idea of developing a social media paradigm that actually brings people into space offline as well. One of the virtues of having a more place-based, community-based social media site is that these governance choices about how you're going to run your social media community could be actually face-to-face. And I'm a big believer in face-to-face deliberation as the only way that you can kind of get a democratic process. So I think if we could build an internet that forced us offline as well, that didn't try to subsume all forms of human experience into the internet, then I think we might be a bit closer to the solution. But it's possible that we should just tear it up at the roots. I'm open to that.
I actually have a midway solution there. Is I think we should just make the internet significantly slower, like mid 90s level
Bring
speeds.
back the sounds. Bring back
Yeah.
the wee woo wee woo. Then people are gonna be like, "All right, that's enough."
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Come in. Jeffrey